Hello, everybody. Here we are at Quantum Leap Revisited, our weekly show where we look at the original Quantum Leap show, the classic Quantum Leap, the good Quantum Leap, and especially during these days when good quality entertainment is sometimes hard to find, it's so great that we get to celebrate this amazing show from a while back. It's not a new show, but it is still a good show. And with me, as usual, I have a great panel of guests, which you already know, but I will still, for those of you who are new, or maybe just joining or just hearing us for the first time, I'll just quickly go over them. Go over them. Go over. I'll just quickly tell you who they are. First of all, we have the real Sean Krummel. Sean is an artist. Sean, he makes stickers, which there's a link in the description below. He has his own Etsy store. Is it real Sean Krummel art?
Real Sean Krummel art.etsy.com.
Yes, exactly. And it's in the description. In addition, he has his own channel, The Real Sean Krummel, where he does drawings, he does retro comic book reviews, and he also does live streams about pop culture. You should check that out. How's it going, Sean?
Good. Happy to be here, as always.
Happy to see you here. Next, we have Ro. Ro is a veteran broadcast newsman, works in the industry. He's very knowledgeable in a lot of stuff that happens in production behind the scenes, especially on a technical level, especially when it comes to cinematography and camera work and things like that. Has a lot of great input for us always, and I always like hearing what he has to say. He's also the host of a podcast called the Scarif Podcast, and it's also known to some as the Scarif Scuttlebutt Podcast. In any case, he is a huge expert when it comes to Star Wars, which is what he talks about in his podcast. But in addition to that, he's also actually very knowledgeable about science fiction in general. And in addition to all of that, he's also the co-founder of the Red 5 Network, which is a network of a lot of other podcasters who also have their own podcasts. Ro, how's it going?
It's going fantastic. I was looking forward to coming on back to the show and compiling my thoughts with the rest of the gentlemen. Good stuff.
You know, we've been all looking forward to it too. Script Doctor is we have him here. You may know him from his channel, Script Doctor, where he has a show that he recently launched in the past month or so, month and a half, or whatever it's been. Scripts on Saturday, where he basically talks about scripts that were considered by major studios to be produced, but have not been produced yet. And he actually goes over it with guest hosts. They go over these scripts and kind of give critiques and breakdowns and analysis. I had the honor of being on one of those shows, and it's really something unique that you don't usually see on YouTube. Great YouTube channel with a lot of stuff. In addition, he has his own Patreon where people sign up, and he gives guidance in terms of screenwriting, which he has experience in. He's an experienced screenwriter. And how's it going, Script?
It's going well. Busy, but I'm happy to wind down my evening with some awesome discussion about a classic television show with you guys.
We're also very happy. I know that you've been, especially in the past few weeks, you've had a lot of stuff going on, but so happy that you're still able to make time for this show. Speaking of busy, we also have Nick, who is also known as the Back Yard Tardis. Nick, in his own town, the town where he lives, he wears several hats. He's, first of all, the local minister, but also he's considered the best locksmith in the entire region, and he has his own business. In addition to that, due to his expertise, he also works with his local sheriff and fire department on special operations. And in addition to all of that, he has his own ranch where, amongst other things, he raises goats. So that's Nick, the Backyard Tardis. How's it going, Nick?
I'm going good. At one of these points, I'm going to have to give you like a clip of a screaming goat so you can cut to that every time you bring that up. I love to latch on to things like the sheriff thing. Like today I was working with on a tribal reservation for the power plant there, doing their law.
Nice.
I'm always busy.
You went all Yellowstone on us.
Yeah.
We just need Kevin Costner to show up on a horse.
It's Yellowstone if they also had a tribal Starbucks and a CBD shop.
That's
Hey.
that's Longmire.
Yes.
Anyhow, it's great to have you here. And of course, we have such a great chat. I really enjoy seeing so many of you here, whether it's Ron Donofero, Tex Rogers, Tornadoes, Matthew McGee. I think that I've picked up, I know some of you write comments more than others, but we're happy to have all of you here. We're also streaming on a few platforms at the same time, including Rumble. Really great to have everybody here. And without wasting any time, let's just jump into that episode. It's a pretty good episode. It's the sixth season of the second episode. It's called Good Morning Peoria.
So,
Sixth episode of the second
season.
Is that what did I say?
I'm
Have
not
you been
as think
drinking?
as you drunk I am.
Is it the sixth episode of the second season? Did I say
Yeah.
something else? I
You said it
that's what
backwards. You said sixth
Season of the
Season.
second
the
episode.
second episode.
You know what? I think that I've just there's a lot going on today, and I guess I wasn't as as focused as I wanted to be. But we'll get into that. Do you happen to know who directed it? I usually look at the director, but
Michael Zinberg.
Zinberg, yeah.
you know, I probably couldn't pick him out in a lineup.
No.
But Michael, I assume during his day, I assume that he directed an episode of Quantum Leap. That's just to give our audience a little bit of in-depth analysis on Michael. What was it?
Zinberg. He's directed a lot of TV shows.
Good, yeah. That's our good old Mikey.
Good old Mikey. He'll direct anything.
Good old Mike. Yeah, so let's share the screen. Let's see what's going on.
Tex appreciates the background that we bring to the show.
The truth is that I only actually mentioned the director because once Tex, I think, either sent me a message or something, and he wrote to me, "You never mentioned the director of the episode," or something like that. And since then, it's been bothering me, so I have to mention it now. I hope Tex is happy. But this just shows you that here at Quantum Leap Revisited, we're not only watching, but we also listen. We listen to our viewers.
And we're not just a couple of pretty faces. We know
Not
stuff.
at all.
We're a couple of pretty faces and a couple of avatars too.
Yeah, no, we take
Yeah.
what we do here very seriously.
You know, it's interesting. Back when, sci-fi was good on TV, we never seemed to care who was directing or writing or that. We just watched it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But now we overanalyze it. Like, who directed this episode? What did they do before? Why did they get this show? Like,
Yeah.
that seems to be the conversation now. But in the past, it was like you just watched it.
It's because nowadays we want somebody to blame.
Yeah.
Is that it, or do you just have better access to more information? So the thing that you do enjoy, you can dig even deeper into it.
Sure. Yeah.
Especially if you're into how the stuff is made, you can look up other stuff that follow them and see how they did stuff on other shows and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of stuff.
Well, we do the best we can here at Quantum Leap Revisited, and now we're gonna look at the episode. You can see the screen, right? I'm scrolling.
Yep. Correct.
It's a little
So it
small.
starts off again. We're still not established with the kind of narrator that ends up being. I keep talking about it, but it sure is taking more time than I ever thought it is until we get to that part with the fixed narration. But we still have the thing where he shows the previous leap and talks about it, and then he arrives. He's at a radio station.
Can you
And
make it
I
a
think-
little bigger?
Oh, okay.
Without, yeah, there you go.
Okay. So what's happening here is that he arrives at a radio station, which is kind of funny because he doesn't even know where he is or what he's doing, and they basically want him to read this advertisement and then put on a song, and we also see what he looks like.
I want to point out that this, usually I get pleasantly surprised with some of the actor choreography of the reflection shots or the special effect reveal shots. This one is particularly good because the if it's not Sam here, the actor flips the clipboard, the mirror thing, and he flips it, and you see the other actor in the shot, which, I mean, for the most part, it looks like a different actor, but it's done pretty damn well.
Oh yeah, it's clever blocking because the hand there is definitely the actor that's in the reflection, and then Sam is just cheated over to make it look like it's him. And I mean, I miss these types of practical effects because now
Right.
they'd actually just do a composite to get
Sure.
this. But really, all they did was they just brought in two guys, they positioned them exactly where they needed to. The cinematographer framed it just right and said, "Okay, now go."
They flip
And pull it off.
and it works really wonderfully. And you're right. Like nowadays, you expect it to be like a little green screen and on the screen
Right.
there and composited and all that stuff. But I love, and I think these practical effects are probably for me like some of the best surprises in the show. And obviously later on, there's a shot where you can tell that something is about to happen because Al
Right, because Al is
you can
pasted.
see is kind of like cut out into the frame, and something's about to happen and you're waiting for it. But shots like this are pretty a nice surprise.
Yeah.
Even that one, I think I agree with you that that something's going to happen, because why would he be there in that way? But it's still, I still appreciate the effort they made. I think maybe back in the day there wasn't HD either. Maybe on a TV, people kind of, between the way the TV looked and how you looked at it, and the screens were smaller and the resolution wasn't as good, maybe they could get away with it a little more. But today in
Sure.
HD, you certainly see. I mean,
Back in the day, it was only 525 lines.
Mhm.
What I
right.
love about that scene is that Rose sees all that, or I should say what I love about her panel. What I was thinking was he's looking at all the equipment. He's looking at the studio. He can't figure it out. He looks in the mirror and goes,
Oh, that's right.
I'm a radio DJ. Like, it wasn't until he saw that he had a face for radio
Right.
that he realized he was a DJ.
Oh, that's right. I'm a radio DJ.
He's not actually that bad looking either for an actor. Generally,
No.
like he's
Yeah, no, it was fine. But yeah, it's funny. I agree with you. That's like that was the final clue that he needed.
Yeah.
But so she's basically said you have to read this thing, and I guess he has to read. Did
the
they already
commercial
start this,
ad.
or
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
they're blasting Tutti Frutti as the thing starts, and then he reads the commercial, and he's like, "And now here's Tutti Frutti," and then he puts on.
right
Pat
here
Boo.
he
Jill's
sort of
already got that mom energy. She has that look down.
She's a cutie in this.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
Patricia Richardson. Yeah,
Yes.
great character actress. Most known for, I guess, Home Improvement,
Yeah.
but completely underutilized too. She should be in way more stuff than what
Agree.
she is. Yeah,
I just looked her up before the show. She looks exactly the same with white hair.
pretty much.
So yeah, it is Patricia. This is an interesting one. You have her as a guest star. You have even a special appearance by Chubby Checker, which I think it starts off by saying that.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, spoiler.
Yeah.
I
right.
mean, it's already in the credits. I don't think I'm spoiling much of anything.
No,
No,
the
you got a
show.
40-year-old Chubbs Checker playing a 17-year-old Chubbs Checker.
You know what? I even appreciated that, but we'll get to that part. In any case, he has to read his commercial. He doesn't know what he's doing. He's putting on a song. He's kind of confused, and
Pat Boone.
I'm trying to think. What is it that they're arguing? What are they talking about here? I saw it yesterday, but I'm trying to remember what they were saying.
Well, he's a disgraced, lackadaisical DJ, and he somehow made his way to the station to work. And while this is all going on, that the Peoria is going through like a very prudish anti-rock and roll
Right.
sentiment because the newspaper owner, who also I guess owns a hardware store, doesn't like what rock and roll stands for, or at least doesn't know what rock and roll stands for, thinks it's bad, and he wants to essentially wield his power over Patricia Richardson here to not play music that children enjoy.
And this is the guy that's bothering her, right? He's telling her that advertisers won't advertise or different things like threats are being made here that she stops playing this kind of music, if I remember correctly, right?
Correct.
Even before all that, though, when Sam starts his narration at the beginning, he makes a line saying that something like there are some people you meet and immediately they rub you the wrong way and you want to rub them back. You want to just rub them back. And I was like, that's very funny and kind of innuendo-y. I thought it was a really good line for him to say and immediately set up what their relationship, standoffish type of relationship is.
Mm-hmm.
Here's our boy's credit.
I wanted to say Dex. Michael Zinberg is here.
Lisa
says Sam is dressed in something Al would wear.
Well, what's really fascinating about this dynamic is these are the most type of authentic relationships that work well on screen, is the ones that have conflict in them. Mm-hmm. The stuff you get on more, I guess, reserved channels or reserved productions is that nope, they just like each other and we're just going to kind of ride the wave of that, which is kind of boring. You want a dynamic back and forth. You want to suspect that yes, these two maybe will get together, but it's not going to be an easy journey for them to get together, and that's kind of what makes good drama.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And anything when it comes to, and you're a bigger expert than me on this, but anything when it comes to writing, it's always good to have a conflict, and especially that there's kind of a romantic thing. Even what Ro's saying that initially, I don't know if it was Ro or you said something that was kind of an innuendo. Was it you that just said it?
Sean
did. Sorry, excuse me.
Yeah, because he says, you want to rub them right back. And it's like, excuse me?
So I'm saying, like, I think this is great. You have that little comment, so he kind of likes her, and then you immediately have the conflict that Script was talking about. And it's a high pressure situation. He already leaps in and he kind of signals to you, puts that in your mind that there's some interest there, and I think it's built very nicely. This is good. These days they're afraid to even show that there's a man that even likes a woman, or that the woman likes a man, or whatever it is. And I think that probably a lot of the conflicts we see in shows and movies today feel dumb because they remove that from the equation, because they think it's bad or whatever it is, or it's not politically correct. It's maybe only if, I won't start getting into the reasons why it wouldn't be politically correct, but you guys know what I mean.
Yeah, and I love that everyone else is picking up on it too. They're like, "Oh, you guys are made for each other," and stuff like that.
Right. And then,
and I like how every time they play it throughout the episode, every time she starts to seem like maybe she's falling to his charm or something, it isn't that she's just a mean and nasty person. She's doing it on purpose. She has safeguards that she's put in place. She pushes people away.
Also, I mean, this is a different era that we're looking at. This is an era where, she's in charge of a station. She has all these men, bothering her and telling her that they don't like what she's doing. And I think that maybe that's part of the reason she has these kind of safeguards. I'm just speculating that it's also the era that she's active in. Maybe if she was in the year 1990, she wouldn't be like this. But in the year that she's in, I guess it would make sense that she would be that way, especially that she's in a position of somewhat power. I believe that she says later that her father left her this station or something like that, right?
Right. Yeah.
And she has to prove herself. And, there's this idea that maybe during that era, your father leaves you a station. You have all these like guys in town that have so much influence. You really have to, I'm just saying that I think there's probably a connection between that and her safeguards. But whatever the case may be, it actually works well for the tension for the story. It doesn't just make it an easy thing that she immediately likes him, or shows that she likes him, but it's kind of something that builds up.
There's a good moment here where the I forget his name, the bald guy, sort of bald guy. He's like, "Do you have children?" And Sam's like, "No." And then he like makes a face like he can't remember if he really does. Made me laugh.
Yeah, that's actually funny. So he's here saying, "Oh, you better not play the thing. The advertisers, blah blah blah." They
Blackmail
leave,
and cancel culture in the 50s. Yay.
Right.
and then he goes to his car, and of course that it is funny that it's car and its license plate and all this stuff. But he has a threat on his car not to play any more rock and roll. They don't take kindly to that in this town.
Also, all the pink in this episode felt very appropriate for being around Valentine's Day.
Mm.
Oh yeah.
And then this is the part where he comes in here and he's kind of asking Al, what songs should I put? And he's saying, I don't remember music. And Al is
Right.
kind of recommending him, don't put this on, put on this thing. And then she sees him sort of talking to himself. Maybe during this era, the face palm that she's doing, maybe she thinks he's on some kind of drug or
Right.
something like that.
Or needs
Dude.
coffee because again he's in there early with time to spare for his shift.
Right. So then
They totally shot down Johnny Horton Battle of New Orleans. I grew up on that, man. I'm sure
Yeah,
no
I
one
mean-
else has heard it.
I'm not sure I know that one, but I mean, I trusted that Al was telling him,
Well, it's
good.
definitely not rock and roll. It's like my grandparents' kind of country, sort of.
I understand. So
Yeah.
I think that the idea of the episode was that he was a rock and roll DJ and they just needed to do that. That doesn't mean that whatever you said wasn't good.
I'm
it's
not
just-
taking it that way, Price. I'm just disappointed that Al didn't.
Right.
approve.
No, that you expected more from Al. You thought that he'd be more
No,
on the
but
same
he's on the
wavelength as
job.
you.
He's on the job. He knows what he's doing.
He has to do what's right professionally, you know. In any case, Sam somehow does a kind of Robin Williams Good Morning Vietnam thing here that I think Al kind of pushes him into being more lively and doing something.
Yeah,
And
he,
then
I
he
love
tells he
that.
tells Sam, "Didn't you see the movie?" And then they cut to him being all Robin Williams.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes from completely nervous to, "Oh, I'm playing a character," and then he just goes for it. And I love like that flip. He goes from just completely mumbling over himself to
Yeah.
yelling into the mic.
And then once he's done with that, he says, "Oh, I really embarrassed myself here, Al." And then they said, "Oh, look, they really like it."
Mhm.
And he goes, "They're happy, and it seems to be going okay." And then these guys, these the businessman and the other businessman, they're hoping that they won't play this music. Suddenly, this group of youngsters walk by and drive by,
Young
and they're
22 somethings.
Hooligans.
hooligans. Yeah, exactly. They're driving and listening to the station and to the rock and roll song. I don't remember what song is played in this exact part.
They're
Uh,
sock hopping in the alley, which cracks
I
me up.
remember.
Yeah,
Static
which
Gr-
is
this whole
also
ep-
funny because I don't think teenagers were really dancing in the streets like that in the frequency in the 59.
Mhm.
This
I
whole
think
episode
someone
has a
saw
good
Back to the
soundtrack.
Future the week before and said, "Let's do a little bit of that from the dance number, that
Mm.
Johnny
Yeah.
Be Good thing."
I got a lot of that feel from this episode.
Mhm.
I feel like an episode like this is one of the reasons that for years there were probably rights issues with music and things like that. But by now these songs are so old that I think that, they worked it out.
They probably got. I mean, again, most of the music is owned by basically 3 big companies right now, and NBC Universal might own all these songs. That's
Right.
why they don't have
I
to worry about it.
That's true. So many of these companies are just buying out some of these rights, especially in recent years. And not only that, if let's say it belongs to one of the other ones, maybe they have enough of a cooperation between them, because if one of them needs something from the other thing, they're already probably the channels of communication these days to get something like this cleared are probably easier than they were 10, 20 years ago, I assume. Because do you remember that for a while, every time you wanted some syndication, there was problems, not only on this show, there were a lot of shows that there were issues with music that were used, but those agreements back in the day that they had, they didn't cover any future media
Right.
that would come out. It was limited to certain things, and once you invented new types of media, well, they wouldn't agree to it.
They'd have to renegotiate a little bit.
Right. I mean, I can understand why. It's not part of their agreement. You want to sell DVDs, you want to sell Blu-ray, you want to sell whatever, pay us.
Yeah,
So
they've those contracts around the late 90s had to get revised a second time, because when VHS came out, they had to get revised then too. And now, since DVD, the rights for most of these things have a clause that stipulates for any existing media
And
that has yet
future.
to exist, and
Right.
potential future media in the known and unknown universe.
Yes,
That's what's
yes.
in there right now. They've actually gone so far as to just make sure that they don't have to deal with this garbage in the event that they find an unknown universe where rights could be in conflict.
Absolutely, absolutely. I've
Just in case.
actually reviewed contracts or been in, seen contracts that had that in there. That is you're absolutely correct. 100%. Today, they cannot take a risk like that again. That some other, and especially these days when there's so many new medias and different things, they actually put it there word for word, like you just said.
Oh yeah, it was one of the points of contention in 07 when web series and streaming was getting into the early days. The studios were trying to say it was a new media, and then all the unions are saying, yeah, and that's already in our contracts, so you have to pay us the proper rate to the new media, and they were trying to get around that. It was a whole nightmare back then, but yep, that's the way it is.
It is. This is the part where he's still having fun. I don't know if maybe here he puts on some kind of. I'm trying to remember what song, but it doesn't matter.
Great Balls of Fire, I think.
Great
is
Balls
one
of
them.
Fire, right? That's what he puts on. This is the shot that Ro was talking about. That Al is talking to him. I still think that if you're looking at a CRT type of TV from, the time that this aired, you would have maybe noticed it, but it wouldn't have been as obvious. Especially you're watching on a smaller TV. It's like you said, 500 lines, whatever it is. Somehow maybe they could get away with it. Now when he stands here, it kind of seems like something is going to happen because
yeah, you're. I'm sorry to interrupt, but it's because the lighting is off. So what?
Right.
And this is something that they probably just didn't have time to do, which is, and normally in these types of situations, you'd get Dean Stockwell to come in, do his scene in front of the window to match the lighting, and then a couple days later you throw him in front of the green screen and you take the rushes from that to match the lighting so that it composites better. And they didn't do that here because there's shadows on parts of his body where there shouldn't be shadows when in that shot normally.
Right.
And you can see the rotoscoping around his head specifically because it's
Right.
that's what kind of, I mean, besides the color, that's one of the things that threw me off. I'm like, oh wait, something's gonna happen.
True, but at the same time, he is technically making a Zoom call here.
Yes.
Right.
I also thought he was just gonna leave.
Yeah, I thought the
like
door was gonna pop up or something.
Right. A lot of times when you see this, the door opens from behind him and he says, Sam, I'll see you later. And then he leaves and the thing closes. Sorry, that wasn't the best impression, but you know what I'm trying to say.
Uncanny, just like him.
But Dean Stockwell here? Oh my god.
I was like, whoa.
No, but he has this kind of way of talking. I just can't replicate it, but you know what I'm trying to say. He's like, Sam. Something like that.
That was better.
That was
Actually.
better, actually. That was a lot better.
I guess I wasn't putting in the full effort at the beginning, but you know what I'm trying
Where's
to
your
say.
cigar? Yeah.
So anyhow, of course, let's see if I'll just play it. I mean, I still think it was a cool idea. The
Yeah.
idea itself that the brick goes through him, I think is a good idea. I mean,
Oh, it's
what
great.
can we do? This was filmed, in 1989, 1990? What can you do? I mean, I accept this effect.
Yeah, this was actually
Plot
filmed
hole.
toward this was filmed in 89 and I think it aired in November. So yeah, it's still the same year. And I think the brick stuff is great because that's very apropos of certain upset attitudes in that period. I mean, which
Right.
lasted all the way up until the mid 90s actually, but
Right.
since they started coming up with more tempered glass, you don't have to worry so much about it.
I think that when it comes to I also creatively just think even from the storytelling and the way it unfolds, I think it's really cool that they said, hey, let's have him stand here. and we'll throw the brick. I just like the whole idea. Even forget about the effects. Just the idea itself that the brick goes through him, and that's how we kind of see this thing happening. That we're not even thinking about it. We were because of how he looked, but you're not supposed to think about it. It's just there's suddenly a brick, and it's cool.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be a surprise. I guess that's what I'm saying.
But it's also part of your act break and also to show consequences. Oh, no, their circuit board is broken. Now they can't broadcast.
Mhm.
And then this forces these two characters to actually spend a little bit more time together where Sam, who I don't know if the guy he leapt into actually has knowledge sophisticated enough to repair this type of technology, but Sam being a quantum physicist with a number of degrees and to his credit, makes it pretty plausible that he could solder and repair this antiquated technology from his perspective, not easily, but like sufficiently.
I agree. And I also agree with what you were saying, that it basically, the stakes are raised here. Before it's like, oh, the advertisers don't like it, you're annoying people or this and that. Once the brick is going through the window, it's like, okay, this is getting serious. So yeah, and then it puts them in a situation that there's more tension and more tension, a little bit more conflict, but it goes back and forth between conflict and they're resolving issues and kind of warming up to each other, but there's also conflict and then it kind of goes back and forth. But I like all of it. I think it's well done.
Was that lean that she does on the console intentionally kind of attractive? No, go back slightly more.
Oh, one.
That's the cleavage lean the girls do that I like so much.
Yeah,
you think that's a
that's body language of seduction right
there. Yeah.
No complaints here.
Anyhow, he fixes the thing. They're back in business, and this is a good thing that Chubby Checker is here. Sure, he doesn't look 17. They.
What are you talking about?
Black don't crack.
But you know what? Considering how many years had gone by and how old he really was, it wasn't the end of the world. You know what I mean?
It's convincing.
Yeah, they did the best they could, and plus,
especially with a name like Chubby, like what?
Well, he was always
you got everything you had to work with.
Yeah, but he was always like there's a reason he was named by Chubby. He's a bigger guy. He didn't really change in silhouette in the last 40 years. But I mean, the funny
Still
part
got
too,
that baby fat.
You watch it, and if you didn't know 100%, you'd be like, oh wow, that's a really good body double or like impersonator, and then you see the credit, oh wait, it's actually him. He's like, wow, he looks really great for his age.
Right.
I thought so too, because I missed the credits at the beginning that he was in it, and then I went to go look because I was trying to do some research about Chubby Checker, where he grew up and where he pitched his demo, which was not in Illinois, but then I looked at the real picture of Chubby Checker, and then I'm like, oh wow, they got an actor to look exactly like him. And then I'm like, oh wait, that is him.
You know what? I love that, actually. When it comes to a time travel show, so many times they bring an actor to play the person that they're trying to meet in that historical era, that they were able to bring the original person, bring him in here, not have it look totally weird and awkward. And
that much.
Yeah, and they don't have, imagine today they have all these de-aging and whatever it is that they do, and even that sometimes looks weird and uncanny and whatever. Look at Anakin Skywalker in that Obi-Wan Kenobi show, how he kind of looked, I don't know what they were trying to do there. Then some shots he looked like he was...
They were trying to save money, Price. They were trying to save money.
They didn't do much. They did very minimal, and each one of them looked like they were suffering from lupus.
That's totally true.
Well,
it looked really weird.
What I also like about it is that that means that he was okay with like them. He had to sign off on them saying that they gave him the idea of the twist. Like he was I think of a lot of artists now, they're so full of themselves that like the idea of that, they wouldn't be willing to play the part. They wouldn't be willing to give their blessing.
They wouldn't see the joke, because the joke here is that Sam knows the move because of Chubby Checkers, and he thinks Chubby Checkers has already done it, but he doesn't know. And Chubby's like, "Wow, that's really cool. I think that can work." It's a collaborative. The joke is the collaborative thing where it's basically like the snake eating its own tail. Like he
Yeah.
still did it, but it wasn't really Sam's idea. Whereas the joke that was also applied, I guess, in Back to the Future is that Marty McFly is doing Chuck Berry's, like a more modern, at least for that time, riff on Johnny Be Good, Chuck Berry style, and then Chuck Berry is hearing it,
Right.
and now that's a bit different because this one is him. Like you see Chubby Checkers actually kind of do exactly what it's supposed to be after he starts seeing Sam kind of screw around with it at first, and then everybody else is kind of. I thought the staging of it was way more effectively done, and you're absolutely right.
They did the same thing with Michael Jackson, didn't they? When we
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
This is a better cameo than the Michael Jackson one. The
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
The Michael
It's
Jackson
actually
one,
Chubby Checker.
yeah, I mean, no, but the Michael Jackson one felt
Delivery.
forced, and it was just shoved in there with no regard to what the plot was. I felt that a network executive said, "Can we see some kind of Back to the Future moments here?" And they're like, "Sure, here's Michael Jackson." But this one actually ties to the plot of the episode. They play his song, and he shows up. And
But you know what? Michael Jackson had to moonwalk so Chubby Checker can do the twist. You know what I mean?
I actually think
Yeah.
that Chubby Checker had to do the twist so that Michael Jackson
Yeah.
can moonwalk.
And,
Probably.
and,
And,
in Star Trek, that's called a causality loop.
I guess.
But I would say,
Nerd.
Ro, that it would not have worked had they gotten Michael Jackson to do his performance as the kid.
Right.
I really
Well,
like that.
Yeah, with forced perspective, they can make him look like he's only 2.5 feet tall
From a really long camera shot.
with a really long lens.
I really like that Sam says, "I got it from you," because that,
Yes.
like you guys said, that makes that Back to the Future joke work better. Thanks,
It's
man.
nice. I think that sometimes, not back in the day, but over the years, because people have become very politically correct, some people took offense to that Back to the Future situation, and they said, "Oh, it's as if he's appropriating the thing." Or I've heard weirdos say stuff. It's not enough to ruin the movie's popularity, and it's just a group of weirdos. But over the years, from time to time, there are people that get offended by it. But even for them, I think that the way they handled Chubby Checker here was really good.
I blame sites like crack.com back in the day because all they did was tear apart movies like that.
Poorly too. That's the
Yeah.
other part.
I like that they showed her walking away, like giving it a little try.
Well, yeah,
And-
she's
and
twisting
then
as she goes
does
down
it
the
like
hall.
she does it a little bit. She stops. She does it a little bit again. And
Yeah,
then she kind of like, nah, walks off.
And Al is checking out how she's twisting,
Yeah.
Of course.
I don't blame him.
as only Al can.
Uh-huh.
but have we didn't even establish the why he's here yet, have we?
Yes, they figured out that the radio station is going to go under because this anti rock and roll thing kind of doesn't get pushed back against hard enough. And so the radio station goes out of business after a year, and then she kind of just bounces around with really no direction. I mean, it's not huge stakes, of course, but I mean, it's not great because it's the radio station that her father built, and she's carrying it on because of him. And she actually loves radio as well, and what it could be, and its potential. And I think that's cool. We have this nice little reverence to her family and why it's important to her.
Yeah, they also said something like her life takes a dark turn or something down the road afterwards too, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right. So
they
he's
leave it very ambiguous compared to some of the other lives.
She's stripping in New York after. I don't know.
but
No,
it's
it would be at an airport by New York, like
Yeah,
near
there you
LaGuardia
go.
or something.
but it's important, yeah, it's kind of vague, but I think that, he has to save this station.
All right. Sometimes I feel like we go through this episode and we're like halfway through, and it's like, wait, we don't know why he's here. We forgot to mention it.
This one also, I think there were events unfolding that were sort of surprising us a bit. In some of the other leaps, it just immediately arrives and he goes, "This person is going to die on September 17th at 5 p.m." And then he's like, "Okay, well, I'm going to stop it, Al." But like in this one, I think that there was a little bit of vagueness because maybe we're kind of surprised at different events that are happening and the way they're unfolding.
Maybe.
I think so, but that's, I guess, just an opinion. In any case, this is the part where they're sitting there and like, oh, those terrible people! I can't believe they're playing rock and roll. And this wife of
they held a council. That's what they were leaving from, and they had passed a weird blue law where they can't play rock and roll in this town anymore.
Right. And then the wife of this guy, she's like, why don't you like it? It's just music. And he's like, oh, this terrible
I know what it
music.
stands for. It stands for long hair and short skirts and teen pregnancy.
And then Kevin Bacon shows up, starts dancing.
So their big plan is to pull up the drawbridge and barricade themselves in the radio studio.
Right. And also there's a part where I think she gets a phone call. Yeah, and then but she tells them, is it here that she tells them I'm going to tell all the public newspapers?
No,
later on, yeah.
Oh, that's later on.
After they cut the power.
Okay, so now they cut the power.
And doorknobs are not usually that high.
Yeah, that was a great joke. So I was just looking for the door. Well, usually doorknobs are a little lower.
That's just Adventures in Locksmithing.
And then they managed to make this generator work.
That triangle?
Yeah, I was gonna say, as a little kid, I never realized what that meant. I saw that
still
everywhere.
don't. What is it?
And it's the symbol for CD, civil defense.
Oh, that makes sense. Because they were walking down the street earlier, and I saw it tiny in the background, and I was like, "Is that an AOL logo?" And then
it's the bomb shelter stuff.
Stuff after World War II, during World War II. Yeah.
Well, I grew up in the middle of nowhere. We didn't have that symbol around.
So they use the generator, but then they call, and then I think she tells them, Sam tells her, tell them it'll be a PR nightmare or whatever. She says, I'll call the news and do stuff. And then Chicago news.
Yeah,
I was thinking of you, Ro.
Yeah.
It's like, this is you. Like, you just arrived I thought
it was a little strange they didn't actually show the news show up.
Yeah. But it's funny because Peoria and Chicago is a little over 150 miles apart. I don't think we'd cover. I mean, if it made national news, maybe, but nowadays they would just, use the affiliate that's there.
In its defense, during those days, who knows if there were as many affiliates and as many stuff? Maybe there was a big story, and I'm just trying. I could be wrong, but I'm saying there's at least a theoretical possibility that during those days there really wasn't a lot of as much.
Right? Yeah.
So maybe there's a big story, and they actually send the guy. Would they send it to this radio station in Peoria? Probably not. But you know what? It's not like enough of an issue. We're now really dissecting it. I don't think that when you watch it, most people don't think about it. You actually do news from Chicago and know how the entire system works.
This is where I can say plot hole.
Right. And one that only you really can explain 100% why. I think most people wouldn't even know the distance between Peoria and Chicago. But in your case, because like you physically are involved in stuff like this, you're the one person that could say it's a plot hole. Exactly.
Well, not to jump too far ahead. Eventually, they are getting national news.
Right.
They mention
or local, at least like regional. There was a line.
Yeah, statewide.
There. Yeah.
And now, basically, they're doing this, and there's. I
really enjoyed these scenes for reasons.
The air conditioner's turned off type reasons.
Oh, it feels organic.
Now I'm a little confused.
Mm-hmm.
It's still the public is all right outside that window, right?
Yeah, I was wondering about that window, actually. I don't know if they barricaded that.
No, the windows behind them is boarded up because of the glass was broken, so they can't see anything.
Yeah, remember the brick? That actually is quite brilliant, that the brick was also the reason why they boarded it, so they can do this and nobody says anything.
I was confused.
I was just waiting for the guy to...
The camera angle was good.
But then after they're really into each other and spending quality time, then there's an explosion, and they basically shut down even they shut down their transmission, and Al
Which-
knows it, I guess, or Sam picks up on it. Whatever it is, there's no more. They're not transmitting anymore. They've killed the station. And then this is an interesting
And
part.
somehow didn't die doing that, because you know how much power is going through a radio station of that type.
Mm.
Because I believe,
Yeah.
like, correct me if I'm wrong, Ro, but usually like the 3-letter radio stations have a really high voltage or wattage capacity for broadcast, don't they?
Yeah, but this is AM, so I'm not too familiar with the power of AM. I think FM had more once that came to be.
FM's the future.
Yeah, but AM
Before they
radio is
showed-
like almost ham radio,
Hmm.
but I'm not exactly
Yeah,
sure.
a lot less
technically.
distance that it covers.
Mhm.
Before they showed him cutting the thing, like I felt like it was building up for they're having this wonderful moment, something bad's about to happen, and I was waiting for like them to turn around and the guy to be pointing at the window. See what rock and roll has led them to? It's led them into sin.
And yet only all the other people are the ones that are committing crimes against this private property.
Right.
Yes.
And this was an interesting part because immediately once there was an issue, she's like, "You fooled me. You did this on purpose just to get me here. You wanted to take advantage of me." And she completely flipped on him in 1 second, like
Mhm.
which
Just like
was
a woman.
What'd you say? A typical woman?
Just like a woman. I'm just saying that in jest, of course, but
Of course,
No,
of course.
it's-
We've
yeah,
never
it's-
encountered a woman like that.
who
Crazy?
did the
In real life.
180 when a priority shifted.
No women in the history of women have done in real life a 180.
Matthew McGee said his had 190,000 watts of power.
Wow.
Oh yeah, there you go. That's right. Matthew McGee was this character back in the day.
Remind me here, what's this call? Is this more press something, or is now they're threatening her again?
They're threatening her, and she told him to tell the chief, the police officer, if he's going to come in here with his nightstick, he can shove it up his posterior.
Right.
Okay. Now, this is the part where we often see in the credits. Again, this was the part where I was rewatching, but it was very late at night. Is all this electricity is causing Al to dip in and out with his hologram? Is
Well,
that
he's glowing, and he's
he
like,
thought he was
"Look,
gonna
I'm gonna
jump."
leap."
Yeah.
I know. I like how excited he is. I'm leaping.
He's like, you can't leap. You're a hologram.
But
So
there's copper.
what's the plan
in
here?
the,
What is how does Sam actually fix this? This is the part where it was
Oh,
really late last night.
They use the
rain gutters.
copper. Yeah, they use the copper rain gutters to act as an antenna. So they hook up everything to the junction
gutters.
area there. Yeah.
Yeah, he pulls out his 101 MacGyver tricks.
Right. Yeah.
And it actually works. I'm not MacGyver, so I can't say if that would actually work, but it sounds cool. So
I believed it.
I'll accept it.
Copper is good for broadcasting.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's very.
I know people that have
conductive.
made copper Wi-Fi broadcasters and receivers, and it's like really analog technology. Yet it works.
Hmm.
I don't know all the science behind it, but I'm always fascinated how simple it is.
And so it's another victory for them. And then at this point, it's the morning, and
They've been at it all night.
they've been at it all night. And
It takes Ziggy to help them find an old newspaper article written by the guy who is protesting the rock and
Mhm.
roll to remind him of what it really
Freedom
means to be an
means.
American and
Yeah.
freedom.
And the
yes.
sacrifices of World War II.
And then there was something else that I don't know if it's this part or a later part or an earlier part that he said something about people call us long-haired weirdos, but the people that wrote the Declaration of Independence were also long-haired weirdos or
Oh
something
yeah,
like
something
that.
like that. Yeah.
Oh, the bill. Well, that's the other part too, and it's not something that they touched on because I don't think a city could actually pass a law on a municipal level that could violate the Constitution, which essentially what happened here, right?
Right.
But when you think about this period of time, even still in the 50s, but really the beginning of the 1900s, there was a lot of times when these little towns would enact laws that were not constitutionally right.
Right.
And you would
Nobody
have
would
to take
protest high
something
enough
all
up.
the way to the Supreme Court
Yep.
to get past it. And that happened. There was a lot of little freedoms, little different things that weren't allowed. And even into the 90s, you still sometimes you'd have these towns that would be burning Harry Potter and Pokemon cards and stuff like that, and the police were actively seizing this stuff and doing it, and
with good reason.
Yeah,
Can't have monsters on
it's one
cards.
of those
That's
things.
the sign of the devil.
Ugh.
But no, you're absolutely right. Like in a lot of cases, nobody challenged those types of laws for a very long time, and that's why they were able to be upheld. If nobody knows it's happening, then it's not considered a violation, and then it has to be brought to courts and then kicked all the way up to as high as again until someone determines either it is or isn't in line with the foundations of the Bill of Rights. Lots of strange laws all over the place, even some that are constitutional but are very weird.
So it ends up on a positive note for them. She now is not upset anymore.
They're gonna get married.
Yeah, and the good
that
news.
was the worst way to take that door down.
With an axe.
With an axe, yeah. Yeah, you don't
To
go
the
in the
direct
middle. You go
middle,
towards
like-
the hinges, or you go towards the doorknob.
Yeah, it's like, what is he doing? He's like,
And then he leaps, and he's a rabbi.
And we get an oy vey.
Yeah.
Oy vey, right.
Oy vey, I'm a rabbi.
so that ending scene of him being the rabbi, that's a personal fear of mine. So I do, I'm a minister.
Think you'll accidentally
I do a lot of
leap into
public
a rabbi?
No, I have no problem doing public speaking, no nervousness about it, but I am nervous until I have my outline written for whatever sermon I'm going to give, because my biggest fear is that I'm going to show up and I'm going to just stand there.
You'll be
There's
like,
not gonna
rub
be
it
any
up,
words.
dub.
It's
Yay, God.
it's a good thing that you're not a quantum leaper then.
All
Just
right.
do
Yeah.
the default. What I said last week, that. Thank you. Have a good day.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Reflect-
I did that
reflect
myself.
on last
I had
week.
one day that I came in, I got up on the platform, I opened to the front page of the Bible, and my outline wasn't there with like the list of points and scriptures I was going to share. And I think I'd never been more nervous going through that, doing it by memory. I got done, went backstage, was on the second page of the Bible. Was my outline.
That's when you flip it on the audience. You're like, what do you think you should learn this week?
Yeah.
What should you be reflecting on?
What problems did you
But
face
I-
that allowed you to take solace in the good book of the Lord?
Kind of like a psychiatrist, only
Yeah,
Right. What do you
so
think?
completely irresponsible.
let's look at some comments from people here, if I can find something recent. First of all, it's nice to see Lisa Katrine here.
Yeah.
She mentioned the Eagle Scout badge line, and that cracked me up, but I can't remember exactly what it was in the show. He was like rigging up the gutters with the wire. And
Oh, right,
someone,
right.
either Al or he says, you need one more merit badge.
Growing up in country, MacGyver acorn bombs actually work.
Oh, dude, MacGyver, there's a show where a lot of the stuff he does, they actually figured out in practice. I think it was only the jetpacks that he fashioned together were the ones that couldn't work.
Right. I mean,
Well,
here.
I don't know if you could stop a nuclear reactor meltdown with Hershey bars, but
Once he
had-
also didn't he
Depending on the
build
type of meltdown.
didn't he build a bomb from a potato or something? I mean, there was some of the stuff there seemed kind of out there, but a lot of it seemed
Bomb from
cool
a
though.
potato? I don't remember that part. I know he used a nail to create a spark plug, and I've actually had to do that in mechanic shop in high school. It's not advisable to rely on that though. But
So, yeah, let's see. Tex Rogers, this show really leads me to ponder issues of censorship versus free speech versus reasonable limits on freedom. What was a tornado said potato clocks? Maybe it was a potato clock. There was something he did with a potato that maybe it's possible to do it, But I don't know why. Until today, I remember he was doing funny things with potatoes.
Well, I know
That
he's
wasn't
made
eating
a
them.
potato battery before, which is a common science
Mhm.
project.
Yeah, I did that with my son a couple of years ago.
Well,
I plugged the cable into the potato and then the other end with an iPhone, and all of a sudden when I plugged it into the potato, the iPhone went bing. I'm like, oh, nice. I had to use 7 potatoes though, but it worked.
and of course, I want
Used
to
an
say
iPhone. All I did was a LED light.
hi to Castle Daniel Garcia. I've seen him recently a few
Buenas
times here,
noches.
and
Buenas noches.
always
Hey,
happy.
¿qué pasó?
And there's
We're so international.
Kaiwan Calendar. Really great to see people here. Just
Class
want to
for
make
me.
sure I didn't miss anybody. Matthew McGee, I said. In any case, we check out the chat. Sometimes when I'm looking at the video, I know you guys are looking and also responding. So, I mean the guys on the panel, not the.
Mhm.
In any case,
The chat's like, we're well aware of ourselves. Thank you.
right.
Yeah.
I guess, this was a pretty good episode, I think. Let's just go one by one. People, you just say what you thought about it. Sean, how did you feel about this episode?
Love it. One of my top favorite ones so far. It's minus all the racism and strife. The 50s is like one of my favorite time periods. If I could live in like a bubblegum chipper 50s setting, that would make my day. I don't know. I just
Right there with the
overall
show.
enjoyed it.
It seems cool, yeah. Ro, how did you feel about it?
Well, I'm glad Sean said that first part just to kind of make sure that he disclaimed his, the
Oh, I'm
minus
sure
the race.
someone would call me on. Oh,
Yeah.
did you know there was racism
back
in
in
the
the day.
50s? And I'll be like, oh, really?
During the peak part of the
Shocking.
civil rights movement and
Right.
started in the
How-
50s.
How dare you like the 50s? Okay.
So I'm going to echo what Sean said. I really enjoyed this episode. I think the dynamic between Sam and I forgot her character's name, Patricia Richardson. I think she was a great character. I think she was kind of a tough lady, and I think that dynamic with Sam was really great. I also really love the 50s. I think one of my favorite movies is American Graffiti by George Lucas, and I think one of the aspects of that film, to me, I love the music, I love the environment, I love that era. So, Sean, if we end up in the 50s, I can be your Mexican sidekick.
It'll be an idealized one, so we don't have to worry about it. So it's cool.
I mean, obviously there were some issues like there are in a lot of different eras, but I mean, as far as the good parts of those days, when you look at the cars, just the general vibe and atmosphere, the music, there's a lot of good things to look at there, but obviously it wasn't perfect. It wasn't perfect then and probably isn't perfect today, although in some instances it's better today and in some instances it's probably worse, but that's just the way things are. Script, how did you feel about the episode?
I enjoyed it. I thought it was charming and fun, and it's one of the greater hallmarks of science fiction is dealing with a general issue that's applied to any type of period of time. In this case, it's censorship from corporations manipulating government onto another corporation.
And you know what? It's weird, but so many years later, this idea is still relevant. Even today, maybe not in the way we see on this show, but the idea of them coming with the advertisers and them wanting to censor and they're trying to manipulate the situation, that still happens today, perhaps in a different way, but as kind of a allegory or whatever you want to call it, a science fiction type of allegory situation. I think that there's something in this episode that still holds true today.
It is.
Script?
No, I have nothing more to add to that. I think that's quite apropos.
He's like, well said.
No, I thought he would be like, no, I don't agree with you. And I'm like waiting for it. And he's like, oh, like he didn't say anything. I'm like, okay.
Censorship is always a hot button topic, and it's peppered throughout all history. Control over what other people can do just because it makes a smaller group uncomfortable. In some cases, there's valid arguments. In some cases, there's ones where you're like, you just want control over people as opposed to letting them figure themselves out. I thought the greatest line that Sam delivered earlier on is that it's one that's actually very true about parents. If you're doing the best job you can with your kids and you trust your children, they will be able to determine what is right and wrong without you having to be over their shoulder all the time. And if you don't believe that, then you have to reevaluate yourself as a parent, not so much be evaluating your children.
True. Give them
Also,
the
another
Rondon
point that
Afero agrees with what you just said.
Another point we didn't touch on was the guy, the main Fred, I think was his name, the one with the axe to the door. They were like, "What's his background?" Because they were trying to figure out a way to deal with the situation, and she said he was like basically a nobody until this whole drama started, and then people started paying attention to him. And I'm like, that sounds like so much of Twitter.
By the way, we have Ishmael that joined late, but he said that he was going to rewatch it later. Like I said, I know it's a specific time, a specific hour. We often get after the fact, after our broadcasts throughout the week, I see a lot of people later catching up and even commenting. And if you're listening to this in a rebroadcast, we're thankful for your support as well. But yeah, I agree with everything you said, Script. And then Nick, let's hear some thoughts from you. How did you feel about this episode?
So I like many have mentioned already. I like the 50s era, specifically the music. I don't really kind of like what comes later in rock and roll, and pop music, but like the 50s specifically, I really like that era of rock and roll. And so just hearing all the songs in this as it goes, and his energy, the radio DJs, when those were big things and they were larger than life, I just kind of like that atmosphere. I also, though, what made this episode so great for me is that it combined that with the censorship thing. And this is something that kind of hits me a bit personally, because one's might look at me, and I'm probably the most prudish of the group, if you will. I'm somebody that doesn't like excessive gore in my stuff. I don't like excessive sexual content. That I typically don't go see a whole lot of rated R movies, or at least not current rated R movies. They're a little different in the 80s, but but at the same time, I love the line that Script brought up about, it's about what you instill. The moment you start making lists and saying, no, you can't do this, you can't do that, and putting it to others and that is something that you see anytime that a church or organization tries to do this, it makes news, and it's always very bad, because point to the scripture, it says you can't do this or you can't do that, but you can teach principles. And it's important that everybody has their own conscience and builds that up and does that and realizes what affects them and what doesn't. And it's not our place to impose our conscience or our belief of what's appropriate or inappropriate onto others. And so I really liked it. Like, that was what Sam was fighting for. And we look at this music now and we go, man, this is tame.
Mm-hmm. Compared to now,
Lady Gaga would shock these people. But it's amazing when stuff comes out like that. I think of my great uncle. He was a traveling minister, traveled all over the U.S. and Canada, going from congregation to congregation, filling in, teaching in that building. Wonderful man. He didn't believe in TV. He was from before TV, and he didn't believe in TV. And I remember my uncle talking about that he came to visit one time, and he walked in and he saw them watching Star Trek, and he saw the pointed ears on Spock, and he says, "That's the sign. That's a devil if I've ever seen one."
Satan.
What are you watching?
Well, that's very discriminatory.
But he had no context, no bearing, no nothing. And so a lot of times, that's why it's important not to impose what we think onto others. And I just really love the lessons that were in this episode, and showing the importance of parents to teach their children morals. When he said that line, I was overjoyed for that. So between being nostalgic for the time period and all that I get from loving Back to the Future and stuff like that, to that moral message, all around, this is a great episode.
And actually, it's what you were saying now, Nick, that really kind of got the chat talking. On one hand, Tex Rogers says that I'm torn on the show. I love Sam and Rachel's unsuccessful fight for freedom, but Fred was also right about rock and roll. It's called incrementalism. You start with something small, get people used to it, and then push the envelope. And then Rhonda Nonofero says, true, Nick, but it is annoying that morals are so upside down in the world right now. Just my humble opinion. And Tex Rogers, but just you talking about this, Nick, started a separate conversation within our chat, and that's what good science fiction does. I like that this kind of show that we always compliment its writing. Sorry, go on.
And I would also say that incrementalism, that is a thing. That is something that, like, there are times when I'll be watching something and something will shock me, and then I'll look at, like, man, I wouldn't have even made it this far years ago. But because you gradually are desensitized to stuff. I mean, we went from the point where I Dream a Genie or Belly Button couldn't be shown on TV, and married couples couldn't sleep in the same bed on a sitcom, to what we have now.
I personally think that Barbara Eden did a fantastic job on I Dream of Genie.
She sure did.
Well, if you're thinking in that regard,
yes.
But Nick, you were saying.
But I would also say that the opposite is true. The moment you are oppressive, you will get the pushback to push back past that oppression. So the moment you tell them they can't have rock and roll, and you say, no, it's banned. Well, why is it banned? Where's the freedom of speech? Is the moment that people will get behind it as a rallying thing.
It's a forbidden fruit.
And
right.
You see this with, like, movements is something like here in California, you had the skateboarding movement. There was a period of time skateboarding became popular, and all of a sudden everywhere started banning it. Oh, we don't want people.
Because they associated with something that wasn't real. Yeah.
Yeah. And the moment people were told they couldn't skateboard, then they were skateboarding in a way that was more dangerous, more damaging, because now they were being rebellious.
It was being
and
rebellious,
and
more
damage to property.
They stimulated curiosity, because if you can't provide a cogent argument as to why something is bad, people will then gravitate towards it. And that's why I learned this in sociology in high school, which is that is essentially a capitalistic mentality, which is that the free market determines what is successful or not. And as long as you don't push back against it right away, if it's a bad idea, it will peter out quickly. And that's why you have what we call fads. And that's why fads don't always take off. They come and they go. If you push hard enough against a fad as you would for, say, like something like rock and roll in this case, you might get a resurgence or an emboldened attitude towards it so strong that it ceases to become a fad and then becomes part of society. In which case, it's not the person who is curious about it that was exploring it. It was the people that tried to oppress it that made that thing become a reality, as opposed to just letting it burn itself out, which is normally the case. It's a very hard lesson for a lot of people on any type of political spectrum to really understand.
An example that comes to mind is like smoking.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at when smoking was commonplace, kids constantly, it was viewed as cool, but they couldn't do it. So what did they do? They snuck out and they smoked. Then you have the 90s and all the campaigns that, look, this is like really bad for you. It's going to mess up your lungs. You're going to be this woman breathing through your neck with a straw. And kids are like, why would I ever want to do that?
Yeah.
Because it's, as Script just said, you're explaining why it's unhealthy for you instead of
I just want to cut in that I just want to cut in and say that you continue to stir the conversation here in a very interesting way. One thing is that Rhonda Nefero was saying there's a flip side to that, Nick. You couldn't make All in the Family today, for example.
Yeah, you can. You just won't find anyone that will pay for it. Like that's just the difference, man.
It'll be
like,
sanitized.
No, not even that. They would just say we're not paying for that. Like right now, there are tons of television script shows being circulated that are actually addressing social issues in a very more conscientious way, in a way that people would find completely harmless, that they just don't want to do because they're like, well, no, we think there'll be a blowback for that. And it's like, but we would love to make it. We just think there'll be a market blowback. And that's the only thing. Like there's nothing preventing anyone from making anything other than the people who just don't want to pay for it. And that's basically it. Because you can make All in the Family and put it on YouTube and it'll be very successful. You could do your own version of Blazing Saddles and put it on Rumble and it'll be very successful if people find it.
Right.
It's not you can't make anything. It's that certain people in power just don't want to or don't want to pay for it.
Right.
There's
and
nothing
those
stopping anyone from making anything.
But they're usually the ones that hold the keys to some big distribution. But maybe today I want to hope that things change, but it's never perfect. Once there's corporations involved and advertisers and things like that, you never know how it's going to turn out.
And the funny part is you can watch All in the Family on Tubi and Pluto, and it's a top tier show that gets a lot of traffic today. So it's a direct, slap in the face to anyone that says, I don't want to pay for another variation of that type of comedy or that type of social commentary television show.
There was an article that popped up in recent days that they were saying that a lot of people are watching older shows now. And they're, obviously, just as we usually see with the media, it's a phenomenon that surprises them, but it doesn't surprise us. I mean, today, if you want to find something that's more kind of interesting and more risque, even, or more edgy, a lot of times you have to go back to older stuff, and it's in pretty much almost, if not every genre.
Not even just risque, but like normal. Like
for us, normal.
It was so refreshing to see Sam and Rachel being into each other and like basically building that relationship through the episode. Mm-hmm. I was like, this just watching them interact is making me happy.
Yeah, and there's a healthiness to that. And to the comment, I think Ron said in the chat that I'm not saying that we shouldn't have rules as a society that says, kids can't drink, they can't smoke, they shouldn't be, we shouldn't be handing out
experimenting with certain
and
things that are adults in nature. Yes.
But it is up to the parents to help that kid understand the reasons for those rules. It's just like you tell a kid not to play in the street and they go out and they play in the street. There's a rule, they can't do it. The important thing is to help the kid develop the logic of why they shouldn't be playing in the street, because that's what protects them. So the rules are there from the government, certain basic things, but it is up to the parents to really teach their children the morals and stuff that are going to protect them. And I think that's what Sam was promoting there.
Yeah, that's what he was promoting there. And what the guy that was in opposition to that was basically saying, this is the reason why, it's the because I said so mentality. And the because I said so mentality is never going to hold water with a kid. Like they look at that and they see that is objectively wrong. And the best parents are the ones that can find a way to convey certain information without, completely shattering their innocence, when it comes to any type of subject or any type of point of concern. And that takes practice. And it also takes an understanding of what their relationship is, especially in overall society. Trust is something that is constantly earned. You can never just take it for granted. You are always earning it. And even when you break it through either mistake or through, mishandling or hypocrisy or something, you're reset back to zero and you got to start earning that all over again. You can never just say, okay, they're my parents, I'm going to trust everything they say. And the parents are going to say, well, you're my child, I'm going to trust everything you do. It's like, no, it's a part of a relationship. It's got to be reciprocal. Like I'm teaching my child all the things I think they need to be a great person that models into the values that we have instilled on them. And they have to demonstrate that back to us as kind of like part and parcel, so to speak. And then it's got to be reciprocal. And you can never say, oh, I'm your father and I'm going to tell you to do this, and you have to believe me because I've earned that trust. It's like, well, no, you've earned the trust to say that, but you have to keep on maintaining that trust in order for me to, take you at your word and to know that I'm putting in the right hands. Because again, we've all been infants. We've all been held by our parents. And it's like, we have no choice at that point but to trust the person that's holding us. But as we understand more about the world and whatnot, that's when the relationships build. And that's where you get your foundations of love, responsibility, and your morals, and figure out how to navigate through the rest of this very dangerous, but very exciting and worthwhile planet.
Yeah.
I
And I think when you look at the world today, you get a lot of there's a lot of people who have taken the philosophy as parents of just, we're going to be the everything is yes. We're not going to stifle creativity.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also the other, just no explanation. If you're not taking the time as a parent to build this stuff up, and then that brings out the smash to patriarchy,
Yeah.
These are what older men are telling us to do, and that they think they can just tell us to do this, and no, we're going to do this. A lot of that comes from not instilling this stuff, and it's the work of the parents, the home, and because no matter what you do, there's going to be this stuff in the world around us. And it's a lot of work. I got a 7-year-old. It is a lot of work trying to keep up.
On your toes, man. Like, that's the thing. Like, you also have to show a little sense of self-confidence in your own parenting skills, because you get to that point, like what you just said, which is rebellion for rebellion's sake. Like, and that's it. And that's a meaningless form of rebellion, because it has no justification other than the fact that it angers the person that, from their perspective, is oppressing them. And if you have that dialogue and you're like, okay, listen, you have to do the hardest thing ever, which is, not necessarily put them on a leash, but just give them a little bit of distance so that they're at that area, but always be able to remind them that if you do trip or something, you might fall, but I will be there to help you get back up if you so need to, until you learn how to do that on your own. And once you kind of figure out that relationship, it doesn't make things easier, but it gives you a little bit more confidence that you're going in the right direction, especially if they're responding in a way where it looks like they're actually growing and going into the right direction. And you got to be very, very astute on that, pay a lot of attention. And it's really hard because you don't know what's going on in the head of your kid. Like, as much as you know them better than anyone else, they will always surprise you. And that's like the joy of parenting, is the whole, I always laugh at the parents that are like, oh, I don't want to stifle the child's creativity. It's like, creativity can never be stifled, because if they're really creative, they will find a way around every single thing you want to do in order for them to facilitate what they want to do.
Well, I mean, what I like about this episode and this show, that it brought up such a dialogue, even between people here on the panel and then in the people also in the chat. And that's what a good sci-fi show does. I think that even Ron Donofrio said something like that just now, that I don't know if I just quoted him. Good sci-fi is like that. And yes, good sci-fi, that's what Quantum Leap is. And this is a good episode in the series, in my opinion. We've seen a lot of good episodes until now. I don't think we've seen an episode until now that's been terrible. I think that all of the episodes have ranged from good to very good to excellent, and this was certainly a good one. I in my opinion,
one of my top 3, but I can't remember what one of the other ones was.
There was Play It Again, Seymour, the one that he's in the.
That's probably my favorite.
And Kamikaze Kid's a good one too.
Yeah, I like Kamikaze Kid too. Also in this kind of era, so yeah, I guess.
There's the train one too.
I guess we like stuff that he goes into the 50s or whatever it is, but those were good episodes, and there's still going to be more good episodes. In any case. We want to thank. Before we go, let me just ask you each. Sean, do you have anything you want to plug?
We stream on Sundays. We just hang out. I doodle. We talk about toys and movies sometimes, and whatever we've been watching. Other than that, I'm trying to figure out what the next video will be. And yeah, check out the Etsy and the channel.
Cool, man. Ro, anything you want to plug? Is anything you're working on?
So Thursday mornings, I usually drop new episodes of the Scarif Podcast at around 6 a.m. just in time to load it up and head out to your morning commute. So we did an episode called a series called 5 Questions. I usually take a friend of the podcast, a follower, and we formulate 5 questions having to do with any aspect of science fiction, and we ask each other and generate some conversation that way. So check it out.
Absolutely. And Rose Podcast can be found on anywhere that streams podcasts, whether it's Spotify, Apple, all those different places that have podcasts. You can find his, and I recommend it. Script, anything you want to plug?
Yeah, just come by my channel on Saturdays for Scripts on Saturday. This week we have another athletic themed screenplay. There's a lot of them going around recently. So this will be a fun one. We got special co-host CC Karaoke coming in to discuss that as well.
CC Karaoke, who was once actually probably our only guest on Quantum Leap Revisited to date, was actually CC Karaoke, who came for one of the episodes. And I consider him a friend of the channel. So watching him do a show with Script together, I like Script shows to begin with, but with CC Karaoke, it's really, I highly recommend it even more, if that were possible. And then we have Nick, who's answering people in the chat.
Yeah. So
any plugging anything?
On my regular Back Yard Tardis channel today, I did a reaction to the Nintendo Direct that dropped out of nowhere today. But over on my Adventures in Locksmithing, I had a fun one this morning looking at talking about my sleaziest customer. This is a gentleman who brings homeless women home to make home videos. And is really racist and talks a lot about Spanish crayons that we were talking about in another episode. Uses that word a lot. And then I have tomorrow, I'm going to have another one of my Locksmith Reacts to Hollywood. I'm going to be looking at Burn Notice. They steal a garbage truck. And some of it is very much quite accurate. And then there's something that they got wrong that I just had to laugh at.
Now every show I watch, when somebody busts the door or does something, I think, oh, what would Nick think about this?
Yeah.
and that's cool.
And yes, to Tex Rogers, I did charge him once I got the door open and he got clothed. I did charge that gentleman who was an awful, but he kept getting locked out naked. And he would always call and say, "Don't send any women locksmith."
But
where's he calling from if he doesn't have any clothes on to hold on to a phone?
He remembers to take the phone, but not the
locked
key.
out of his house. He's just locked out of his room. He would lock all his valuables in a room in his bedroom, and then he had a separate room that was his filming room.
Oh, creepy.
Well, I always like I like both channels, but I really enjoy the uniqueness of the Adventures in Locksmithing one, because you really do stuff that I don't really see in a lot of other places. And I love hearing the on-the-job little testimonials that you give from your car, that you go from one place to another. Always fun. And also, I love this direction of looking at stuff that's happening in movies and shows, and you give your analysis on it. Really cool. Highly recommended if you haven't yet checked out Nick's channels. There's Adventures in Locksmithing and the Back Yard Tardis. And I guess with that, I'm just going to thank quickly people in the chat. There was really nice people here doing a lot of commenting, and I love that this episode and this show and even our discussion raised so many kind of interesting topics to discuss, and so many great ideas from people and great comments. Love seeing Rhonda Nefero, Lisa Katrine, Tex Rogers, Tornadoes, Ishmael dropped in. I know he's now probably rewinding and probably watching it from the beginning, like he said. And all the rest that were here, whether it's Castellar, Daniel Garcia, and anybody else that I also probably mentioned before. We thank you, and we'll see you here next time on Quantum Leap Revisited. And before we go, we're going to just do our little outro, which I will find in 1 second.
Drop the bass.
Okay, I'm doing it now.
I'm such an awesome guy.